Spider-Man is arguably one of the core mascots for PlayStation in 2024, divorcing the Insomniac take on the character in the world of gaming from Sony's symbiotic relationship with the character on the silver screen. PlayStation has relied on everyone's favorite webhead time and time again to sell their consoles. After two very successful entries in their own Marvel universe, Insomniac was poised to really prove the worth of the PlayStation 5, their vision for Spidey, and their Marvel universe with Marvel's Spider-Man 2. 1 year after its launch, did the game live up to its potential, or did the weight of these great responsibilities prove too heavy to bear? Let's find out. This is your spoiler warning. Everything is on the table for Insomniac's Spider-Man games. Let's first come to understand why Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was such an important game for PlayStation when it launched in October of 2023. The original Marvel's Spider-Man was first revealed during PlayStation's killer E3 2016 press conference. This show was incredibly important for the company, as it took advantage of the great sales momentum of the PlayStation 4, leaned into their premium experience brand they'd been building since the release of The Last of Us, and featured a live orchestra to enhance the excitement in revealing a revival of God of War, the return of Hideo Kojima and his new game Death Stranding, Resident Evil getting back on track, and of course, debuting their long-rumored exclusive game, SpiderMan, or #SpiderMan PS4, as it was referred to for a very long time. It would take 2 years of hype cycles and E3 gameplay demos before players finally got their hands on Marvel's Spider-Man from Insomniac Games, but many felt the wait was worth it, due to the fact that this title essentially perfected what fans loved about the character in his decades-long history. The story, while predictable, was quintessential Spider-Man, where Peter is pushed to his limits, sacrificing his own wants for the greater good, performed perfectly by Yuri Lowenthal. The presentation was next level, so much so that I read Spider-Man in Yuri's voice and cadence now. The only other character I do that for when reading comic books is Batman, voiced by Kevin Conroy. Yuri struck a chord with me and many Spidey fans. For such a cinematic and relatable character, that performance is important, but even more important was how the game felt to play, and web swinging through Manhattan was so purely jubilant that I did it for an extra 40 hours after beating the game. I played it like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Hell, I still pop into the remaster after platinuming both versions of the game to just swing around these days. The game resonated with its audience, as it was the biggest launch in PlayStation history at the time, further going on to become the fastest selling superhero game in US history just 3 months after its September 2018 launch. PlayStation gamers could not believe the hit they had on their hands. Marvel's Spider-Man became the easiest game to recommend to anyone picking up a console, looking to buy a PlayStation 4 Pro because that Spider-Man PS4 Pro looks great on a shelf, trust me, I have one, or for those who hadn't used their PlayStation other than playing their yearly Call of Duty or Madden title on it. The game reviewed well too, sitting at an 88 on OpenCritic, and it even gained a nomination for Game of the Year at Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards. It did not win. While fans eagerly awaited what would come next out of Insomniac's Spider-Man world and the numerous teases in their game, they didn't have to wait very long. PlayStation saw the immense love for the 2018 title and knew what they did next with the series was critical to its growth. At the June 11th, 2020 PlayStation 5 The Future of Gaming event, where Sony lifted the veil on their next-gen console, after kicking off the show with a montage of the PlayStation 4's greatest hits and an advertisement that Grand Theft Auto 5 would be coming to the PS5, the first game showcased for the new generation of PlayStation was Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Not only was Miles Morales the first PlayStation 5 game PlayStation revealed ahead of the console's launch, it was also positioned as the console's premier launch title, next to a remake of Demon's Souls. While the game did release on PlayStation 4 the same day in November, the improvements of the PS5 version, along with the fact that a full price edition of Miles Morales included a remaster of the 2018 game exclusively for PS5, was more than enough for many fans to justify grabbing the console on day one. As you'd expect, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales also sold very, very well. The Spider-Man series under Insomniac across these first three entries, Marvel's Spider-Man 2018, Miles Morales, and 2018 Remastered, was able to hit 33 million copies sold as of mid-2022. That's an astounding accomplishment considering plenty of other PlayStation franchises, with many more titles under their belt, have struggled to hit a combined sales total anywhere close to that. It's safe to say that the Insomniac Spider-Man series is very valuable for PlayStation. Limited edition consoles, controllers, movie tie-in DLC drops, and a whole lot more made Spidey and Spidey the faces of the company and this console just as much as Kratos and Aloy are. Some fans, however, were a bit bothered that nearly every PlayStation exclusive through the first 2 years of the PlayStation 5 were essentially spruced up PlayStation 4 games, some even regretting purchasing the console. Miles Morales, God of War Ragnarok, Gran Turismo 7, and Horizon Forbidden West all launched in a much more than playable state on the last-gen Sony machine. So when it came time to look further into the PlayStation 5 generation and give players a reason to upgrade and feel good about owning a PS5, Sony once again relied on Insomniac and the wall crawlers to step up and prove the need to have a PlayStation 5 console. The September 2021 PlayStation Showcase responded directly to PlayStation gamers tiring of compromised cross-gen titles by promising not one, but two brand new Marvel games from Insomniac set in their Earth 1048 universe, Marvel's Wolverine and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. We'll get to Wolverine a bit later, but Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was the penultimate game of the showcase, displaying a much more next-gen looking Peter Parker and Miles Morales fighting thugs in the street of a rainy and reflective New York City, only to be surprised by the bassy, threatening voice of Venom and a 2023 release date, PS5 only. The internet went wild with hype. While there were still cross-gen releases after this presentation, there was now a clear line in the sand. For many, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 would be the first true PS5 game that was made with the hardware in mind, uncompromised by not being held down by the PlayStation 4, and would be dripping in AAA production value. This was the game, along with a couple others like Final Fantasy XVI and an eventual Ghost sequel, that made me finally buy a PlayStation 5 in the following calendar year, simply because I knew it would be a can't-miss title and a real showcase of what the PS5 is capable of. The pressure was on for this game not only to justify an expensive console, but also pave the way for Insomniac's expansion in their Marvel world with the upcoming Wolverine game, and also satisfy fans of the original two Spider-Man games. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 launched on October 20th, 2023, exclusively for the PlayStation 5. Boasting a dual protagonist campaign where players would fight off Venom and Kraven the Hunter as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales. The symbiote would be in play, with Peter towing a line between power and corruption. His relationship with MJ was on the line, and New York was suffering an invasion from lethal hunters and goopy aliens. The stakes had never been higher in Earth 1048 so far. The game is jam-packed with content. Doubling the size of New York by adding Queens and Brooklyn, Insomniac also increased the speed of traversal, with wind tunnels and web wings for the Spider-Men to glide and ride on their way to their next mission. New side quests, collectibles, and challenges decorated New York. Mechanically, Peter and Miles also got expanded kits from their first games, with individual skill trees for progression. In every single way, the game is bigger, but if it's better is a bit more questionable. Sales-wise, the game quickly skyrocketed to be the fourth best-selling game of 2023, holding that spot all the way till the end of the year. Games sales tracker Circana even stated that the game's launch sales were a double-digit percentage larger then the launch of Marvel's Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4. Eventually, in February 2024, PlayStation reported that the game sold 10 million copies in its first 4 months on shelves. While not a direct analog, Marvel's Spider-Man sold about 13 million copies after 11 months. Overall, general sentiment at launch was positive. The game managed to hit a coveted 90 on OpenCritic, and players felt that Insomniac delivered another great Spider-Man adventure. The game shipped with a few notable bugs, like Spider-Man's character model swapping out for garbage or cubes, and an exploit that would allow players to break past the game's boundaries and play as Venom in the open world. Some players even called this launch the buggiest PlayStation Studios title they had experienced in a long time. Just a bit after the game launched, it received a nomination for the Game Awards 2023's Game of the Year, with Yuri Lowenthal being nominated for Best Performance. The fanbase for the game was so passionate that they said it was a shoo-in for GOTY on social platforms like Twitter and TikTok. When both the game and Yuri lost to Baldur's Gate 3 and Neil Newbin in their respective categories, many fans of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 quickly angered and did nothing but talk down on the winners. For weeks on gaming TikTok, all you would see was Spider-Man 2 versus Baldur's Gate 3. Frankly, it seemed like most of the people really shooting for Spider-Man 2 just hadn't heard of Baldur's Gate, and eventually the anger subsided. Meanwhile, some things began to change amongst the discussion on the game. Right before Christmas of 2023, Insomniac Games was the victim of a brutal data hack which leaked over a terabyte of sensitive information and future plans for the company's release slate. In it, various bits of sales info were uncovered that painted Spider-Man 2's launch in a much different light. It was revealed that Marvel's Spider-Man 2, as of the time of the leak, hadn't made its money back yet, months after launch, largely due to the fact that the game had a $315 million budget. Comparatively, the wildly successful 2018 entry only cost about $90 million. Spider-Man 2 was nearly 3 times the cost of Marvel's Spider-Man, and many didn't view it as 3 times the game in any perspective. This new piece of information sparked many debates about where that money went, because while impressive on PlayStation 5, most fans struggled to see all that extra money on screen compared to both Marvel's Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales. The idea of diminishing returns and the necessity for next-gen leaps was already well discussed in the online gaming community due to multiple years of PlayStation exclusives releasing for both the PS4 and PS5, but the cost of this game being leaked to the public made many commentators take a hard look and question if it was even worth it. If Spider-Man 2 was thought to have a successful launch, but its initial sales weren't even enough to break even after breaking records, is this current path sustainable? While this conversation hasn't settled on a firm answer, with many of these commentators moving on to more relevant topics today, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 likely made its money back by the time it hit 10 million copies sold in February of 2024, what really struck a chord with fans was leaked plans for the future of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that still have not come to fruition. The leaked roadmap, as it relates to Marvel's Spider-Man 2, listed a treasure trove of updates, including free DLC, 3 story packs titled Beetle Infestation, Extreme Carnage, and Spider-Verse Anomaly. The latter 2 would be following up on scenes from side quests in the base game that folks assumed would be continued in a sequel. Seeing that these threads were meant to be addressed much sooner and be concluded with DLC made fans eager for any news. Another leak was a multiplayer mode for the game, similar to Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Spider-Man the Great Web was supposed to be a 4-player cooperative Spider-Verse sandbox, allowing players to play as Venom, Gwen Stacy, Miles Morales, Peter Parker, Miguel O'Hara. You get the point. Finally, a standalone smaller game in the vein of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, entitled Venom: The Lethal Protector, was listed as being the follow-up to Spider-Man 2. This Venom expandalone was listed as being a 2025 release. As of right now, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 has only received a handful of major updates. The initial content drop post-launch for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was set to bring new suits, accessibility features that fans needed in the game, mission replayability, and New Game Plus to players in December of 2023, but this was ultimately delayed to February of 2024. When it arrived, it added 4 new suits to the game, New Game Plus, bug fixes, and the other promised features. June 2024 also saw another update, this time also addressing issues and dropping 8 suits, including collaborations with artists like Rina Sawayama, and bringing back Peters into the Spider-Verse outfit from Marvel's Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4. September 2024 saw yet another update to the game, fixing Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit and how it appeared in-game, and addressed some bug fixes. Now here we are 1 full year later, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 has largely done nothing, at least compared to what fans expected. Yes, due to the content leak, but also due to the support past games in the Spider-Man series had seen. Marvel's Spider-Man was fairly remarkable in its post-launch support. Initially receiving a season pass with 3 chapters under an initiative titled The City That Never Sleeps, Marvel's Spider-Man added a good few hours of extra story content, including characters like Black Cat, side activities, and a load of new suits. All of this was delivered within 3 months following its launch. Here and there, however, the game received random updates, adding new free suits. The hotly requested Sam Raimi suit came to the game late December of 2018. 2019 got the suits from Spider-Man Far From Home added to the game, while Spider-Man Miles Morales didn't get any major DLC. It did get some suits added in post-launch updates. A year after Marvel's Spider-Man 2, by this time after the launch of Marvel's Spider-Man, the game had almost double the amount of playtime with its story and side activity DLC, and added a plethora of new suits. So it would make sense that fans of the sequel are a little restless in terms of what to expect from the game in the future. Insomniac has repeated that they have nothing to announce regarding DLC as of right now, and morale is fairly low that the situation will change anytime soon within the fandom. Since this leak happened at the end of 2023, PlayStation has undergone a fairly substantial overhaul. Not only has the company been hit with substantial layoffs, it is also under new leadership, and is reportedly pivoting away from having a bunch of games as a service titles. Unfortunately, it seems that Spider-Man The Great Web is one of these canceled games as a service. When a trailer for this multiplayer sandbox game leaked in early 2024, it made a splash on social media, with many fans expressing disappointment that it never saw the light of day. A year having passed with no word on story-based DLC updates and a cancelled multiplayer game, fans are distressed about the future of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. While debates go back and forth on whether or not these story updates are still coming, the alleged 2025 Venom standalone title has also begun to be questioned if it's even gonna happen. Seeing as other PlayStation studios have had core multiplayer projects cancelled, like The Last of Us multiplayer, PlayStation doubling down on their bread and butter story titles may be the new strategy. Some have speculated that rather than doing updates to Spider-Man 2 or making a smaller Venom game, it may be better to focus on making Marvel's Wolverine an incredible game that can be released as soon as it's ready. Today, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a bit of an anomaly. If you ask most fans how they would rank Marvel's Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2, you'd be hard-pressed to find a clear number 1 amongst the community. While initially celebrated, as time has gone on, more and more players have expressed issues with Marvel's Spider-Man 2, with some not loving the tweaks made to gameplay, like the reliance on gliding, but more having issues with the game's narrative. Specifically, the treatment of Venom in the game and the writing overall compared to the first 2 Spider-Man games is a fairly contentious point of debate in the fandom. While some prefer the perfected Spider-Man experience of the original game, or the more characterized New York City in Miles Morales, it is hard to parse what Spider-Man 2 clearly does better than these other games in terms of story. But it does look better, is bigger, and features more things to do. While fans wait to see what the future of Marvel's Spider-Man from Insomniac is, whether it be DLC, a standalone, or moving on to Spider-Man 3, it feels like the focus has likely shifted to be directly on Marvel's Wolverine at Insomniac now. Another title that arguably suffered even more from this data leak as a playable early version of the game leaked online, surely the pressure to deliver another great PS5 proving experience was already there, but now Insomniac will be combating warped expectations for the game because of this leak. and a nebulous post-Spider-Man 2 reception. Only time will tell where things can go from here, but how do you feel about Marvel's Spider-Man 2 1 year after its release? Are you still hoping for DLC? Do you expect a Venom standalone title? Or have you largely moved on? Me, I'm in that last camp. I had a very fun time with Marvel's Spider-Man 2 at launch, even though I didn't really care for the story much at all. As much as I would love to see another swing at Venom, hopefully with Eddie or Flash in the symbiote, my main interest at Insomniac right now rests in their take on the Wolverine, especially since the next Ratchet & Clank game is allegedly pushing 2030. So that's the legacy of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and be sure to let us know your ranking of the Spider-Man games from Insomniac so far, and stay tuned to Game Rant for more videos like this.